All right, my name is Joseph Michael Dickerson. Welcome to The Solution Point, our podcast and YouTube video channel that talks about solutions to problems that you may have in business, in your life, or in the law. And so to get started, let me first introduce my better half and co-host, Catalina Dickerson.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here and great to get here on time. Yay.
All right. So I want to introduce our guest today, Dr. Ricardo Castillon. I'll probably refer to him as Rick because we've known each other for a long time. And so he's going to talk about a solution that's on a lot of people's minds. It was actually on the Today Show this morning. With COVID, a lot of people have gained weight. And it's not just about this time. It's more of a long-term obesity epidemic in our country. And so Rick is a physician. I think he's a board certified obstetrics and gynecology doctor, but he knows more about different types of medicine than I probably can even start to describe. I know that he probably has enough credits for wilderness medicine to have another subspecialty in that. But without further ado, let me introduce Dr. Castillon.
Hey, Doc.
Hi, I'm Rick
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, all right. My name's Rick Castillon. I've been practicing here in Laredo for 21 years now. Originally born and raised here in Laredo, and after my residency in OB/GYN, I came back to Laredo and been here ever since.
Great. Well, tell us what solution tell us about the solution you're gonna tell us about.
Right. We know the problem is obesity, and to be honest, I mean, COVID has had quite its way with us and changing our lifestyle. But this has been, something that's been a problem before COVID. But how can people really tackle it? Maybe give us another perspective to solve this problem.
And maybe you can tell us a little bit about what is obesity exactly. I'm hoping it's not like I've got a little spare tire, a little mountain bike tire around the waist. I hope that doesn't mean it's obesity, but maybe you can give us more clarity on what we're talking about when we say obesity, as compared to maybe you've just gained a few pounds.
Certainly. Well, obviously the last year was very trying for a lot of people. Unfortunately, a lot of people did not do well. They passed away, and our hearts go out to those families. The other effect of quarantining throughout that year, where people were staying home, they were accessing unhealthy foods like fast foods, things that were not particularly healthy. They were not exercising, getting out because of the quarantine and the fear of getting infected.
Yeah.
But certainly the problem with obesity has been something that has been not only an American problem, but a worldwide problem. So to define obesity really quickly is when you go to a physician's office or somebody's office, and you get this certain measurements. You usually get your height, your weight, blood pressure, things like that. And there are certain criteria that we use to define obesity, and there are several stages of obesity. But basically, we look at your body composition, defined in one term by the body mass index. And that's just a calculation given your height and weight. And there's different categories depending on your age. But typically, anybody with a body mass index of 30 or greater is considered to be obese. And obesity before has not been looked at as a medical condition, but throughout the years, sometimes even physicians have looked at people with obesity as just making wrong decisions or having a weak willpower or a character flaw. But we now know that obesity is a medical condition, the same thing as a heart disease or high blood pressure, any medical condition that has to be treated and confronted like a medical condition. A lot of times there are different factors that come into play when somebody reaches the level of obesity. It could be genetic, environmental, or a combination of all kinds of different problems. And so it is a very big problem here in the United States. Despite many years of advertising about low fat diets and low fat this and everything you buy should be low fat, and we have 2 decades of everybody from the government to the local dietitians and nutritionists pushing people on low fat diets. During that whole time of this campaign of low fat diets, the obesity prevalence has gone up. And so between 2000 2018, the obesity prevalence in the United States alone has gone from about 30 to about 42%. And about 18% of those people are between the ages of 2 and 18. It's estimated by 2030 that over 50% of the US population will meet criteria for being obese, a body mass index of over 30. And so it has become a huge factor in just the cost of healthcare and governmental costs, loss of work, wages, productivity. This impacts every sector of our society, but particularly this has really struck the healthcare industry. It's much harder for people to get healthcare, adequate healthcare, when they have an obesity problem. It's harder to control their blood pressures. It's harder to do surgery on these people, and it's not something that's easy taken care of. And as we see more and more people reaching these levels of obesity, even severe obesity, which is a body mass index of 40 or greater, their lifestyles are, or what we call in the medical world, their quality of life has been shown to be equal to people that have cancer. And so they don't leave their homes. They have difficulty moving, breathing, accessing normal everyday activities, from public restrooms to airplane seats to there's a lot of things, and that is even above the risks for themselves. So when somebody becomes categorized in the obese range, 30 BMI of 30 or greater, they start to fastly head toward a state where they increase their risk for cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes.
Rick, if I can interrupt you, I think that we could probably go on for a whole hour talking about all the bad stuff that comes from obesity. It just kind of keeps going into a downward spiral. But I think what I want to switch gears with you a little bit is let's talk about the solution that you have. I know that you've got some concepts that may help our viewers and listeners to do something about it if they are obese, or to try to avoid getting to that point.
Well, certainly the initial thing is prevention, right? And so, because I'm in women's health, it is important that I speak with patients that are pregnant about a concept of what's called epigenetics. And this is the effect of the mother's diet on the growing fetus. We know that obese babies that are overweight for their 8.5, 9 or more pounds, those babies have a risk of developing type 2 diabetes as they get older. And we know that mom's diet has a lot to do with it because the glucose that mom ingests can freely flow through unencumbered through the placenta into the baby, and so the baby has a chronically elevated insulin level.
Mhm.
So for adults that have tendency toward being overweight, so they go from overweight to obesity, a lot of prevention can stall them out from reaching that level of obesity. So obviously diet, lifestyle, one of the biggest things that we discuss with our patients is behavioral. And so there's really a four-pronged approach that we look at when we look at obesity. One of those, the first thing is behaviors. And what I mean by behavior is eating when you're not hungry, snacking on unhealthy foods. Like I said before, despite the big push on low-fat diets, the prevalence of obesity has risen, and that's mainly because of the consumption of refined carbohydrates and a sedentary lifestyle. Um, However, a lot of women, especially Hispanic women, tend to gain weight um, quickly and move toward type 2 diabetes once they reach a certain weight. And we know that most people work and they have a hard time having healthy choices to eat. But so we attack behavior first. The
Right.
second thing that we like to do is to rule out any medical conditions that the patient might have. And this is what we call metabolic testing. And so when we do metabolic testing, what we do is we look at their fasting blood work and specialized blood work to look at their risk for insulin resistance syndrome, type 2 diabetes, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So these are things that are medical conditions that prevent them from losing weight easily. If somebody has a diagnosis of insulin resistance syndrome, they can try every diet in the world and they're not going to lose weight.
And I can imagine that once they've gone through this metabolic testing, and being a woman who's had children, gained weight with each one and made efforts to lose it, I can imagine that once they've done that medical testing and they've ruled out certain medical conditions, I bet that gives them kind of, maybe a fresh start or a vote of confidence to say, you know what, I always thought it was this. I always was blaming it on this, but there's nothing wrong with me. Or, you know what, it has to do with this and I need to approach it another way. So I can imagine that after that testing, that helps the behavioral part too, right?
Well, it's when we talk about um, the influence of society now, when we look at sedentary lifestyles, when we look at the ease and affordability of fast foods, some of that is behavioral in nature. Um, but when we do metabolic testing and we do, I tell them they don't have a thyroid problem, or they don't have, type 2 diabetes. Um, but still, there are patients that don't have type 2 diabetes, but they are just about, if they continue on the same road, they're going to eventually develop type 2 diabetes. Um, once all the other medical conditions, obviously, if we find a medical condition, we're going to treat that medical condition, whatever it is, whether it be insulin resistance,
Right.
type 2 diabetes, or if they have any other thyroid issues, we're going to treat that.
The key is to get out of the rock, right? Get out from under the rock, get the knowledge that what is your body doing, what is happening with your body. It sounds like, the big step and that supports the behavior is finding out the facts.
That's correct. I think that's really empowering, and it's something that I've done with all my patients, whether it's obese patients or the other issues in women's health. I think an informed patient does better in the long run. So,
and the same can be said for our world too, right? An informed person about how to protect themselves in estate planning, and kind of in being, knowledge is key, right? And that's seems like it crosses a lot of different professions and different.
I think so, and I think in particular when it's easy for people to get misinformation, right? And so I think that Google search or asking Dr. Google is not the way to go, but to align yourself with a trusted physician who's looking out for you. Unfortunately, there are physicians that and clinics around the country who are doing weight loss management as a way of making a lot of profit. But I think that here, what I like to do with my patients is more of a holistic approach.
Right.
It's not only their mentality about their health choices, their physical aspects, and how those are connected, and how they can just feel better about themselves, and ultimately comes back to what I said about quality of life.
Right.
And so quality of life issues are extremely important for a lot of people, and for their families. And so
if you don't have quality of life, then you don't have a lot of life in you. You can't enjoy your life.
Right. And if you have quality of life, you may not need a will. No, I'm just
All right. So the one guarantee I give every one of my clients is everyone will die.
Yes,
Don't know how, don't know when, but I guarantee you all of us are going to die. That's for sure.
So we looked at number one being behavior and 2 ruling out medical conditions. Tell us about the third part of the approach, the third prong.
The third prong really is exercise. And so
I like that.
What we like to do is we like to really encourage patients to get exercise daily if they can, but at least 3 times a week for an hour each time. And, that's difficult for obese patients. Their mobility is sometimes limited. Sometimes they will choose to walk in the afternoons, but we kind of coach them along with, when you walk around the neighborhood, it's not like you're walking down the mall. You need to walk with some effort to get your heart rate up. And so we like to do that. That's really our third approach. So
how do you feel about breaking it up during the day? Because sometimes, like you said, an hour might be tough. Sometimes I use I don't have it now, but I use my rings, and I make sure that I get at least a 250 calorie burn before I leave the house. And then if I can get a little more in the day. So do you sometimes approach your patients that way?
I do, because sometimes they don't really have that much time, but it's essential for them to get exercise almost on a daily basis, because what they're not only fighting their potentially medical condition like insulin resistance, but they're fighting their body's set point. After years of being obese, after 3 to 5 years of being obese, the body has readjusted its own set point. And so the body is saying, I like being at 250 pounds. And you're saying, no, let's get down to 200. And your body's like, no, we're going to stay at 250. So it takes a long time to retrain and reset that point that your body's going to be comfortable at. And so if there's no exercise at that point, the body's never going to get retrained. So, and so it's important that they get exercise in, that they get some kind of exercise on a daily basis. You know, for just for in our pediatric patients, and just in whether they are obese or not, really the recommendation really is, you know, this 5-2-1-0 method. So 5 stands for 5 vegetables and fruit servings a day. They should get no more than 2 to 3 hours of recreational screen time. They should get zero sugary drinks. What that means is no lemonades, no sodas, no Gatorade or Powerades. And one of the biggest things that I deal with is combating the myth of diet drinks. So even though there's a diet soda, it may not have the sugar content that a non-diet soda has, but what it does have, the substitute still stimulates insulin to rise. And as long as the insulin is chronically elevated, the patient is going to continue to gain weight or not lose weight. And so it's important that that when speaking with the women that I speak with about their children, because part of this is obesity is generational because it's cultural in the family. They buy sodas, they buy diet sodas, they have lemonades, they have Gatorades, Powerades, sugary drinks, and we need to get whole families away from those things and encouraging more fruits and vegetables, less screen time, exercise, you know, at least an hour a day, and no sugary drinks whatsoever. Maybe you know, at a birthday party or something like that, but
Right.
as a family culture, we need to get away from those things. Fried foods is again another thing that the first thing we take away from everybody is sodas and fried foods. So fried foods, you know, anything that has a refined carbohydrate is going to put fat on somebody. So
Now, what do you think about air fryers? I mean, sometimes it's part of how they make, you know, what if they, well, can I use an air fryer? Is it the coating?
yes, that's correct. So anything that's considered to be refined carbohydrates, again, we've had decades and decades and decades of what we call low fat, and that hasn't impacted the obesity prevalence at all. We're not really worried about fats, especially, you know, good healthy fats, avocados, things like that are healthy fats. But we're worried about things that are refined carbohydrates, the grains that have been processed and the nutrients stripped out of it.
Yeah, sugary cereals, you know, the kids, you know, ramen soup.
bread.
So, yeah, ramen is, you know, you can get away with it when you're in college because, you know, it might be one meal out of the whole day, but certainly those noodles, so white noodles, white rice, you know, anything that's considered a refined carbohydrate.
Right.
Those are extremely, extremely bad. And any kind of coating that it doesn't matter what you do, you're still ingesting that refined carbohydrate. So reducing refined carbohydrates is essential in every diet.
How about prong number 4?
Prong number 4 is medication. So when we look at patients that are obese and they are committed to losing weight, and they are agreeing to all 4 elements of weight loss, or the first 3, I should say, and some people need medication because they have a medical condition. They either have insulin resistance, they either have type 2 diabetes, and so they need medication. So, you know, there are FDA approved obesity medications. There are other medications that we use off-label, and there's combination medications that we use. And a lot of times patients can be on these medications until they lose about 10% of their body weight. And then we can give them a trial off of those medications. Some patients have to be on medications chronically throughout their lives.
Well, I think that's that's a big approach. One thing that I always have said about exercise is when they say, "What's the best exercise? Should I be doing strength training, or should I do cardio, or should I play a sport?" And I'll give you my answer, and then I'd like to hear your if you agree with me. The best exercise to commit yourself to is the one that you'll actually commit yourself to. If you like running or you like walking, then do that. Don't say, well, I'm going to lift weights if you hate lifting weights, and you're going to only do it grudgingly. If you can get into an activity that's going to keep you moving, and you enjoy doing it, that's better than saying, well, I'm going to go to the gym every day and lift weights, and that lasts till January 6th when the Three Kings come.
Right. I mean, I would agree. I mean, I think it's pretty evident by all of the gyms that have popped up around the towns that have people in it that want to get memberships. Initially, will go a few times and then they stop going, but they still have to pay their memberships. And despite all the gyms and everything else, it's not really impacting the prevalence of obesity. And so, yeah, you have to do something that you can do. Number one, that you're going to enjoy doing. Maybe not initially, but you might get enjoying it once you start to see the results of it. But again, there are people that reach a certain set point of obesity that need medications, and so we can't just rely on one thing or two things. It really is a multi-pronged approach to be the most effective to combat obesity.
Right.
Now,
And so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
real quick, and I see your sign, and we know you're an OBGYN, but just, for our listeners, because we have probably male and female, and these are all very good ideas, but are you currently treating just women, or is this for the weight loss aspect? Are you also consulting men or speaking to men?
Right now, we're just seeing women, and
Okay.
and that's a function of time and office space.
But hopefully the women will be, as many women are, very influential, and hopefully if the women take that message home and take your four-prong approach and share it with the family, hopefully that will also kind of change the culture of the family, right?
I hope so. Yeah, I'm hoping that. And again, there are some healthy approaches, like eating more green leafy vegetables, and eliminating refined carbohydrates that are basic, even if you don't have obesity, right? Exercising, getting the kids to exercise for at least an hour a day, and limiting their recreational screen time to 2 hours. And those kinds of things, I think every family can implement, and not just for the children, but for the adults, because again, I think families build a culture, and it's not only the mom that's overweight, but the dad's overweight, and one or two of the kids are overweight, because it's a culture in the family.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Rick, one of the things that we like to cover, and just here as we get close to the end of our time, we like to talk about core values. And core values for us is how we decide things in our business, in our life, how we conduct ourselves. And so we always ask our guests to share a core value with us. And so why don't you share a core value with us, and we'll dive into that for a little bit.
Well, I think that one of the core values, being a physician, obviously, I think everyone should seek a healthy lifestyle, and that is not just with your physical body, but emotionally, spiritually. I think that that is one of the important things that we need to do, because if we do it, we are examples to our families how to live better and ultimately live a better quality of life. We have to confront the world that we are born and live in. And so we live in a world with a lot of fast foods. We live in a world with technology where it's very easy to be looking at a screen 24/7. It's easy not to be engaged in activities. And I think that we've been given this human body that we can take care of, and it has dividends. It has dividends for us and for our families if we take care of ourselves. And so, obviously, going to your own doctor to make sure you don't have any preventable issues going on. For women, they should get pap smears, mammograms, things like that. Men need to be checking for cardiovascular disease as well as women, but cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and in men, prostate issues, and exercising, keeping a healthy weight, I think is important, and really developing a habit of eating healthy and making better choices in their eating, and not drinking alcohol too much. Obviously, we don't like anybody to be smoking. Um, and so, if anything that this pandemic has shown us is that the people that were at highest risk for getting very, very sick and even dying from COVID were the patients that had the least amount of health. They were either obese, and this is not to criticize obese people. This is just an example to say that we need to be living a healthy lifestyle. A lot of people that were overweight, that were smokers, that weren't taking their medications the way they were supposed to be taking them. If they had diabetes or cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, and they were on medications and they were not taking their medications, so they had uncontrolled diabetes, they had uncontrolled blood pressure issues, and then they got COVID. Um, they got very sick, and so leading a healthy lifestyle in all areas of your life, it benefits you, your family. You become more productive and ultimately happier person, leading a better quality of life.
And I wanted to, you brought up a good point in it. I'm wondering if, do you see a correlation with those that are struggling with obesity and maybe also depression or mental health issues? I know sometimes that for myself, and when I've been at my heaviest, I haven't had the best self-esteem either, and maybe a want to get better. But it seems like there might be a correlation, and maybe how do you turn on that light bulb for folks to see, you know what, this is bigger than you. This is it's more important for you to get healthy, because you look at your family.
Well, I think that one of the first things is making sure that our patients understand that they're being overweight or obese is not a character flaw. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not because they're weak-willed or that they have some kind of mental problem or they just are not a good person. That has nothing to do with it. Again, we are confronting the issue of obesity as a medical condition, and it hasn't always been so. It hasn't been too long since the American Medical Association has recognized obesity as a medical condition. And so that we've come a long way in our recognition of obesity being a medical condition. But you're right. Patients, most patients will struggle with their self-esteem because I mean, they have to buy two airline tickets to fly because they need two seats. They need a seatbelt extender. They can't be as mobile. They can't play with their kids in the backyard like they would like to. And so, yeah, it impacts them emotionally as well. And so, I think the first thing that we make sure they understand is that this is not your fault. This is not a character flaw.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so I think that goes a long way into helping them understand I have a medical condition. It is treatable. And if I buy into the program and I continue down the program, things are going to get better.
And I guess that's another important issue is having a healthy lifestyle isn't a one and done type of thing. You can't just say, well, I'm going to get down to, let's say, 200 pounds. And then now I'm going to stop looking at the scale. I'm going to go back to eating whatever junk. I'm going to drink whatever I want because it'll come back just as quickly as you lost it. So you've got to commit to maybe a complete lifestyle change. Would you agree with that?
Of course, yeah, of course. Again, this, we talk to patients about, how committed are they? I mean, I have initiated weight loss management programs with many patients, and they just are not willing to do it. When we do food logs and we have them record their food and beverages for 3 days, there's obvious things in there that they know they shouldn't eat, and they just like, whatever, and obviously they have to be motivated to not only to get to their end point, but be willing to incorporate these strategies for these lifestyle strategies as permanent changes in their life.
Well, Rick, thank you very much for your time. I think you've given us a different angle on obesity and the solutions for it, and that sometimes it's not somebody's fault that they have this situation. There's a multi-prong approach, so it's not just get on this diet and it's a solution. It's a multi-prong approach. I think that's enlightened us that there's a lot more to it than the diet of the week.
And even enlightened us that we need to go to a professional. This is not something that, and especially with the medication, and also having a physician on board. So that, thank you for letting us know. And how can people get a hold of you? I see your phone number, but if you could give us maybe instructions for our listeners and our viewers how they can reach you.
So they can call us at our office at 753-7600. They can go to our website, to LaredoOBGYN.com. We're located at Laredo Medical Center, Tower A on the second floor. And we do, metabolic testing, nutritional testing, hormone testing, and weight loss planning.
Now, and this is just something because I'm like, oh, I want to go. But like, if you take insurance, is it cash pay? What are folks' options to going ahead and paying for these types of services as well?
Yeah, that's a little complicated because a lot of insurances won't cover some of the things that we do. So we have kind of a mix of what we do take, all major private insurance, and we take cash. But because of some insurance difficulties, sometimes they won't cover some things, and so we kind of have a mixed approach to that.
The best thing to do is to call the office, and then kind of, maybe do they get like an initial consultation? How does that work?
So initially, if they're coming in for, we're running a deal right now that the visit with me and the physical exam and the initial labs are $250. And that's all the initial fasting labs that we do, our initial metabolic testing and the physical exam and time of need. Yeah.
Great.
And so that would get somebody kind of a baseline as to where they're at and help be the starting point for a plan. If they need to lose weight, what next steps to take. Correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Great. Well, I think that would be money well spent. And so that's fantastic. Rick, again, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll catch you all next time on The Solution Point.
Thank you very
Thanks a
much.
lot. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. We'll see you later.
We'll see you later, alligator. We'll see.
Bye-bye.
Bye.